Good evening, everyone. While folks are filling in from the waiting room, feel free to let us know who you are in the chat feature. Let us know your name, where you're joining us from tonight, and how long you've been with APAP. Wait about another minute or two to officially get started. All right, good to see a lot of folks rolling in. I think I saw Western Australia, which might set the record for furthest distance away tonight. All right, well, it's nice to see everyone here tonight. Welcome APAP members for our virtual kickoff event for the 2021-2022 admissions cycle. I'd like to point out a few helpful links that are being shared with you in the chat. We get a lot of questions about the university's COVID-19 response strategy and what that means for prospective freshmen and applicants. Any questions pertaining to COVID-19 testing and how the university has adapted during this time can be found at that link that is being shared in the chat box. Also, we want to highlight WashU Parents and Families Weekend. Also has a dedicated website now. Parent and Family Weekend is this upcoming weekend, October 29th through the 31st. The weekend schedule of activities and ways to engage is provided there. Now we have a fair amount of parent members, and also some parent has questions about ways that they can get engaged with the university. So please direct any interested folks to the WashU Parents and Family Weekend website. Next, please be sure to check your email frequently to see if you have interviews to accept. Instructions for how to navigate the portal and how to conduct APAP interviews are available on the portal and in the member resources section of the website. APAP staff is also always available should you have any questions. If you feel comfortable doing so, please consider volunteering to staff college fairs in your area. Some areas are conducting college fairs in person. There's a few that are being held virtually still, and if you feel comfortable doing so, please consider volunteering to staff college fairs in your area. We're excited that that is returning slowly but surely, and you can do so by volunteering to update your volunteer preferences, which is also in the AP portal, the one-stop shop for everything you need to know about APAP and conducting interviews can be found at the portal. As you may know, APAP interviewers, we're only able to offer interviewers to approximately 15% of applicants each year. And we have a directive from the university to help grow our program to offer interviews to more freshmen. We get a lot of great feedback every year from applicants. And the more likely an applicant is to enroll is based a lot upon their contact with the university. So we'd like to have many touch points as possible. So we have a mission to grow APAP. We want to grow a program and be able to connect with each interested prospective student and their family. So that we ask you to actually recruit additional members by reaching out to your friends and your WashU network to encourage them to join. A few other short, quick announcements. We also encourage all APAP interviews to attend the upcoming APAP Lunch and Learn program. We're having that program Tuesday, November 16th, right at noon Central Time on the dot. That session will focus on navigating tricky questions that interviewers are often asked in their interview by prospective students and their family members afterwards. At the event, we're going to hear from a Senior Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admissions, Kendall Spina, on how to navigate any tricky inquiries that might come up during interviews with prospective students. You'll see an upcoming save the date as well as RSVP instructions in your email. So be sure to check your email. That is the best way to stay updated with all the APAP events that we have planned for members this year.
Thank you, Cyrus and Renee, for giving us some updates about what's been happening, just a few changes in the admissions office and the admissions world over the last 18 months. I'm going to quickly give you some highlights about what's happening with APAP as well, and then we'll have some time for questions. So next slide, please. I know many of you have been a member of APAP for quite some time, as we saw as you were introducing yourself, but a few of you might be new and are kind of wondering what you got yourself into. Thank you for coming tonight. We are the largest volunteer group the university currently has. We are basically a bridge between university advancement and the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, made up of volunteers who are enthusiastic about helping us spread the word about WashU and recruit the best students to the university. We're currently approaching 2,500 volunteers so far this year. But as Jason mentioned, we still are limited in the percent of students with whom we can interact, even with 2,500 volunteers. And so we hope you will help us recruit your friends and colleagues who are undergraduate alumni or parents of current students and encourage them to participate in APAP as well. Hopefully you'll be even more enthusiastic after tonight. Next slide, please. We do have volunteers located all over the world, so don't be afraid to reach out to your friends that live far away. As we saw, we have a member here tonight joining us from Australia. So we are happy to have people participate wherever they are. This year we have 72 committees. We have a new committee just established in Madison, Wisconsin. That's our newest one. But each of those committees is chaired by one or more alums locally. 6 of those are international and the rest are domestic. But alums, volunteers are able to participate literally anywhere in the world. Next slide, please. I know you hear from those of us on the APAP staff quite often, but we thought you might like to get a look at us, even though we are a very camera shy group on the whole. We did manage to sneak a few pics, so I just threw those out for you to get a look at everybody and start connecting faces and names. Next slide, please. As I hope you know, we have a number of ways our volunteers can be engaged. As we mentioned earlier, we are beginning to staff a few college fairs in person. I expect that this will continue to grow through the spring. So if you haven't already and you feel comfortable, perhaps consider marking college fair volunteers one of your activities that you'd participate in. We also have receptions for admitted and enrolling students and families, and we have some parent outreach efforts rely on our parent volunteers to help with the Congratulations Calling program, parent-to-parent calling, the parent resource, and international resource list. Next slide, please. For the alumni volunteers, one of the most impactful ways that you can help us connect with the next class of students is through our interviews. Interviews here at WashU are optional. And we offer them either with current students, which a student can schedule through the admissions office, or through APAP. And APAP interviews are offered to applicants based on interviewer availability. So basically, we try to offer them first come, first serve for as long as we have interviewers available to reach out to the students. The interviews are conducted only by our alumni members. We do consider them to be casual conversations, so they're not intended to be like a job interview. This is really a way for you as a volunteer to share why your experience at WashU was impactful on your life, why you were happy you spent 4 years here, and for you to spend some time getting to know the student and getting to know them, their name and story, and helping share that back to the university so that we understand what the student can contribute here. Last year, 96% of the students that responded to our survey after the APAP interview said their interest in WashU increased after their interaction with our interviewer, which I'm thrilled with. That's a record for us, but it shows that you're having a tremendous impact on those students. And these are students who have already applied, so I really do feel like that's a significant impact. Just a reminder, this year, again, all of our interviews will be virtual. Next slide, please. Volunteer portal, you're going to hear this from us a lot. Please log into the volunteer portal. This is where we manage a majority of our activities. This is where you can update your contact information. You can edit your profile there. You can select your activities. You can look at other committee members in your area. It's really important that you're into the volunteer portal. If you have any difficulty accessing the portal, please reach out to us at apap.woostel.edu at our email, and John Richards, our administrative assistant, will be happy to help you work through any technical issues. Next slide, please. Throughout the season, you can update your activities at any time. Please note that all alumni members were automatically opted in to conducting interviews. However, you are able to go in and uncheck that activity if you are not interested in conducting interviews, but would like to participate in other ways, or if you simply just don't have time this year, or if you prefer in-person interviews, for example, and this year we're 100% virtual. You can also indicate an approximate number of interviews you think you might be able to do this year, which just gives your chair some idea of your availability. And if you have some time, I really encourage you to consider offering virtual interviews outside of your local area. These are really important for us to reach a large volume of students, and they're really helpful to our chairs who are struggling sometimes to find enough interviewers locally to reach out to those students. So please consider selecting those activities as well. Next slide, please. All right, we're going to talk a little about the interviews. So there's just a general overview of the timeline. Your first step is to accept the interview assignment, then connect with the student, and schedule the interview, then conduct the interview, and submit the interview report form for every accepted interview assignment. Next slide, please. So interviews have already started. I think I looked today, we had about 1,500 students working their way through the process already. Those interview assignments go to the chairs and they assign them out in the portal to the volunteers who have opted to conduct interviews. If you are assigned an interview, you will receive an automated email from ap@woostel.edu. So you might want to consider adding that to your safe senders list if your email provider has that. You have 7 days to either accept or decline the assignment. You will see under my interview assignments, anything waiting for you to accept or decline. If you decline the assignment, that sends it back to the chair so that they know to reassign it to a different volunteer. If you do not accept or decline within 7 days, the assignment expires so that it can also be reassigned and it will no longer be available for you to accept. Next slide, please. So once you have accepted the assignment, you are able to click on the applicant's name in the My Interview Assignments column there to view the applicant's details. From there, you can click on the applicant email address, which will open an email to the student in your email browser. Please note, if you have not actually accepted the assignment, you will not be able to get to the applicant details. So that's a step that sometimes people sort of feel like, of course I'm accepting, and they kind of move on to trying to reach out to the student, and we get a fair number of questions about that. You actually have to click accept before you can get to the email address. We do have an email template in there for you to use when reaching out to the applicant. So you can just copy that into the body of the email, insert your own personal information, and then send the email off. We do suggest that you include in that email what platform you feel most comfortable using, such as Skype, FaceTime, or Zoom, but of course be receptive to the student's comfort as well. Next slide, please. Conducting the interview. Please make sure before you conduct your interview that you review the How to Conduct an APAP Interview document, which you will find in the volunteer portal. It's also available in the Member Resources section of the APAP website. In the document, it has ways for you to prepare for the interview, sample interview questions, key messages that we like for you to keep in mind and share with the applicants, and also has some helpful questions and prompts and deadlines for completing the interview report form. Next slide, please. A few do's and don'ts for you. Please be mindful of your background. As you can see, many of us use our WashU virtual backgrounds. You're encouraged to do that. They're available on the website if you'd like that. Please do turn your camera on during the interview. Dress in business casual or WashU branded attire. And we expect the interviews to take about 20 minutes with the students, give or take. We know every conversation is a little bit different, but we really encourage you to try to keep them roughly to that length, because if one student has a very long interview and another student has a very short interview, they can read into that more than anyone intends. A few don'ts. Don't choose a place where you'll be distracted. Don't sit with your back against a brightly lit window, and please don't record the interview. Next slide, please. I just want to remind you that many of these students may be under the age of 18, so that we expect all of you to be positive role models, remain caring, respectful, responsible, be professional. You are a representative of the university in your interaction with them, and you should only be reaching out to them by phone, email, or text to arrange and conduct the interview. Next slide, please. After you've conducted the interview, then it's time to go back to the volunteer portal, click on the student's name again, and then you can go to the bottom of the applicant details box and click on Submit Report. Both the applicant's information and your information will pre-populate on that form. We ask that you submit all interview report forms within about a month of when you first accepted the interview. That moves it along for the students, and also hopefully allows you time to move on and connect with other students. Next slide, please. I do want to highlight for you that for those of you who are returning and have been around for a little while, the interview report form that you will see this year has changed a little bit. We changed it in order to bring it more in line with what the committee will be considering in the committee-based evaluation. Purposely trying to draw out the students' personal qualities that are of interest to the committee, their academic interests, their community involvement, and then there is a question about interest in WashU. As Cyrus noted, we are not tracking demonstrated interest anymore, but we are still curious about why students are interested in us, what drew them to look at us in the first place. Is there a program they're particularly interested in? Or, do they have a friend? Anything like that that might help us just understand what they're looking for in a university and why they think WashU might be the place that can bring that to them. Next slide, please. So I just want to thank you again for all that you do, have done, and will do to help us recruit another great class. We know from getting to read students' responses to the evaluation how much they enjoy this. It is truly, I tell people this all the time, but my favorite part of this job is to go through the interview evaluations and read the amazing things that students have to say about their interactions with you. All right, and with that, I think we're ready to take questions. And Jason, do you want to sort of manage this, toss some questions out, or?
Sure, I'm happy to start out. We had a few questions submitted in advance to the team, and we'll go through a few of those. And I know that questions have been rolling in through the chat function. If anyone has some questions you'd like for any of the panelists to answer, feel free to type them into the chat or the Q&A feature, and we'll get to as many as we can before trying to adjourn as timely as possible tonight to be as respectful as possible for everyone's time commitment. First, there is one question. I think this is probably better suited for Michelle on the APAP side. How can APAP members sign up for more APAP events, and how can they know what events they've already signed up for in this age of multiple virtual events and many invitations coming through their inboxes?
At the moment, all of our events are handled like the invitation for this. So you will receive an email invitation about the event, and we'll include a link to RSVP, and you can just register on that. We do hope someday to get that up on the portal as well, but we're just not quite there yet. Please join us for as many as you can.
Great, thank you. Next question, I'll hand this one over to either Renee or to Cyrus. There were a few questions that were submitted both in the chat in advance about how the interview form is used during the admissions process. Can you talk a little bit about the committee process and how does the admissions staff actually use a report form and how does it fit into the overall picture?
Yeah, I can go ahead and jump in and answer this question. So thanks for the question. So it's just the interview report form is just another piece of information that helps us understand students, their interests while looking at WashU as well too. They can talk about their experiences, but a chance just for us to get to know them more, get to hear from the interviewee more about why they chose WashU and some of the things that WashU provided them during when they were a student and post-graduation. So it's just a way that we can just gather some additional information because our holistic process looked at a wide variety of components and we are evaluating applicants. And this is just one piece that we can consider in looking at students about their interests about WashU and just overall get to know students a little bit better throughout our entire evaluation processes.
Okay, I'll ask another question to the admissions folks again too. Can you talk a little bit about the financial aid breakdown for the average student? I believe that there is some measure of an average loan package, an average grant package that might include some measure of financial assistance through the way of loans, either public or private loans. Can you talk about how that composition has changed over the years and how does the university use student loans as a portion of a financial aid package?
That's a really great question. I don't know if I'm going to be able to provide you with the exact details. On the slide that I shared earlier, I shared that the average financial aid award package is about $54,000. In terms of loans, again, students who are Pell eligible or who come from families that make 75K or less do not have loans awarded in their package. And so when you think about that, that's, I guess, probably, I'm just going to throw out some round numbers. These aren't exact, but if we have about 700 students that are getting need-based gift aid and about 18% of those are not getting any loans. And the loans typically, if a student is getting a loan, the loan in their financial aid award is $5,500. So if a student is getting a $5,500 award for all 4 years, you can do that math. One of the things that we track very closely is whether or not our loan program, and this is debatable. People have different opinions about whether or not students should be taking out loans to go to college when so many of our peers don't have eliminated loans from their financial aid awards. But at WashU, we're still providing some loans and packages. But we look at the percentage of the graduating class that has had a loan, and then we look at the average loan debt that a student is graduating from WashU with. And over the course of probably, I don't know, I think it's like 10 years or so, the percentage of our students who are taking out loans has remained the same, around 24%. And their average graduating debt is also significantly lower than the national average. And this year, and the national average is typically around like 36K, I believe. And this year, the average WashU loan debt for graduating students was just under $20,000. So, we are doing pretty well in terms of helping students manage loans and not being overly burdened by loans. But it is an issue that I think that we're going to have to continue to look at. We had to be need blind first, and then it is something that we'll continue to look at.
Okay, thank you, Renee. Next question will be to Michelle. We've gotten a couple of questions about growing the ranks of APAP, and since there are many participants here who are chairs, of course, a lot of members as well, how can members and chairs best reach out to other alumni to help grow the ranks of APAP?
Yes, thank you. Please do. We hope you'll help us. So we really just ask you to use your networks, email, call, text your friends, probably not call because people don't do that anymore, but share the words, talk about why you enjoy it, send them the link, they can join on the website. We will take referrals. You can, I think there is a form on our website, or you can send us an email and say, I want to recommend Jason Lewis to join APAP, and we'll send Jason a nice email inviting him to join and rat you out and tell him who told us. But really we'll take people however we can get them. But I think the best thing is for you to talk to people about why you enjoy it, what you enjoy about the experience, how fun it is to talk with these students about what they're doing, why it was fun to go to a college fair, which I know didn't happen last year, but hopefully will again, or to go to receptions and see these excited, enthusiastic students and their families. I think everyone that does that can tell you that's the best part.
Yeah, and I'll just echo Michelle's comment as well. Having that individual outreach, a word of mouth to your alumni friends, that is, I've found to be the most proven way to get board members to join APAP. And we really want to have the numbers grow as much as possible. The interview is, as Ron and Cyrus had alluded to, definitely is considered. It helps the admissions committee a lot get to know a student better, and helps to have students know more about us as well. I know a few other points as well. The university is doing a lot of outreach with especially younger alumni to help them get more engaged with the university upon graduation. So we're trying to make APAP an important part of those outreach efforts, especially to younger alumni as well. And in addition to that, I know chairs are able to access lists of alumni in their nearby areas, and the APAP regional chairs are trying to do as good of a job as possible about utilizing those alumni lists and sending out outreach on their own. We also welcome any as Michelle said, any recommendations of folks that you think would be a good addition to join APAP. You really want to join our ranks as much as possible. One question that I saw come in, this is also admissions related to Rane and to Cyrus. In one of the slides on the statistics of the entering freshman class, we've seen that the standardized test scores have been remarkably consistent, perhaps increased a little bit over the last decade. But we did notice that there was a slight dip in the percentage of students graduating the top 10% of their high school class over the last couple of years. Can you talk about, I assume it probably wasn't an intentional decision, but how does that class rank and GPA factor into the admissions process?
Thank you to whoever caught that. Typically I explain that and I forgot tonight. So the class, the top 10% going down is not really a function of anything that we're doing in the admissions office. It's actually a function of high schools. And many high schools around the country have stopped providing class rank. It was a move that high schools began to try to decrease some of the stress and anxiety that high school students were feeling. And so there's been a significant decrease in the percentage of high schools that rank. And I can't remember the data. I'm trying to look at my cheat sheet, but it certainly has gone down. It was 88% are in the top 10% of the class, but that only represents like 24, 25% of the entering class.
Thank you, Ronnie. That's fascinating information. A couple of questions about APAP that have rolled in. Michelle, can you talk a little bit about how alumni, especially those that have graduated perhaps some time ago? Personally, I'm 15 years out now, and even though I'm in St. Louis, the university is always changing, a lot of new information. How can APAP members get better in touch with the university so that when we talk to prospective students, we have as much information as possible to share, as some of our anecdotes might be slightly dated, especially a number of years out?
Sure. I think there are a number of ways that you can stay connected to what's happening. First of all, as a member, you will be receiving regular updates from us. Hopefully you're reading them all. We do try to make them relatively brief and informative and timely. So take a look at those. Hopefully you're following us on Facebook, where we'll try to highlight some things there. Read the record pretty regularly. Follow the university on the various social media sites to stay up to date about what's happening. We have various training documents on the volunteer portal and the website, so you can take a look at those. But also, I think it's helpful to remember that you are there to talk with the student about what your experience was, and that can still be meaningful, even if the current student's experience is a little bit different than yours. So a conversation with someone who graduated a year ago is likely to be different from a conversation with Jason, who graduated 15 years ago, but both of them can be meaningful conversations. Jason has a little more perspective to share about what his WashU education potentially has meant in terms of his life and career, as he's a little more removed, as opposed to a current or a recent alum who can talk more about what the residence halls look like today. And those are both valuable conversations to have. And then, of course, just to talk with the student about what their experiences have been, what they're looking for, and also what they're going to bring to the campus as we're trying to look for our next class. Also, I'm going to take this opportunity because I remembered one important thing that I forgot to mention going through my slides, which is for every interview that you accept, every interview assignment that you accept, you please have to submit an interview report form for the system to know that that is complete. So if you can't reach the student, despite trying to reach out 3 times over 2 weeks, if the student declines for whatever reason to participate in the interview, or if you have a great conversation, regardless, we need you to submit the interview report form. Otherwise, the system considers that to be an open assignment. And then you'll hear from us repeatedly as the season comes to a close and we try to get the interview report forms in. So if you can just submit it at the end of those attempts to reach the student, or after your conversation, then that will close it out on the system. You can move on and we won't keep reminding you. So sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier. I think, Jason, we maybe have time for a few more questions before we need to wrap up here.
That's right. I think we can probably fit in 2 shorter questions, and we'll do one more for the admissions folks and one more for Michelle on the APAP side. For the admissions folks, there have been a few questions asked about financial assistance for international students. Renee or Cyrus, can you talk a little bit about how either the new need blind policy applies to international students, and if not, how are international students eligible for and how might they receive financial assistance?
This is always the fun part when Cyrus and I try to figure out who's going to answer the question. So international students are not a part of the need blind process. We will still consider international students and transfer students under our need aware admissions policies. That is consistent with what our peers are doing. So we feel while we would love to be able to at someday, we're comfortable right now where we're going. And that is also because international students, if they're admitted and if they need financial aid, then we're going to meet 100% of financial need for international students as well. So we are serving international students and awarding financial aid to international students.
And if I can jump in on that, thanks, Renee, for that. Our international students are still eligible for scholarships too. We have several. I talked about those ampersand scholarships, some of our signature scholarships, except the Irvin, right? So they can still be awarded scholarships as well on top of everything else that Renee mentioned. So.
Okay, thank you. And the last question I'll field back to Michelle. This was sort of a tricky question that Rob Fitzpatrick has asked, and just as a plug again for the upcoming APAP Lunch and Learn in mid-November, which we'll get emails about and save the day where you can RSVP. Classic tricky question, and this is not the first time that I've heard this happen, but it is seemed to thankfully pretty rare when it happens. Rob had looks like an anecdote where he was doing a virtual interview recently, and a parent popped in and decided to stay during the virtual interview. Michelle, how can an APAP member delicately handle that situation?
So funny, you can tell we're rolling with these live because I just responded to Rob and said, I'm going to run out of time. I didn't know that was the question you were going to throw to me. Yeah, so we know that that might happen. And certainly if parents want to be there, we welcome the parents to be in there. We want everyone to feel as comfortable as possible with the interaction they're having. And I think everyone is very cautious in this virtual world. So that's fine. I think it would also be fine in that instance to make a note of that on the interview report form, just so that the person reviewing the form understands that there was a parent present in the room for whatever that means for the conversation. And if there are more specific questions beyond that, I'm happy to talk over this or any kind of question that comes up as you're going through an interview. If there's anything you're uncertain about, or you just want to run through with us how to include something on an interview report form or what to think about it, reach out to me or Michelle or Allison. We're always happy to talk with you about these kinds of questions. And I think we are basically out of time. So I want to thank you personally. I want to thank Renee and Cyrus for spending some time with us. And Jason, I'm going to let you, I think, close it out.
Okay, well, we want to, again, thank you, Renee. Thank you, Cyrus, for joining us tonight as our special guest. And Michelle, Sarah, Allison, and everyone at the AP staff, thank you for organizing our annual kickoff event. Again, to all the members, make sure you continue to check your email, check the portal for upcoming events and updating your volunteer preferences. It's an honor to serve as your chair for this year. And hopefully we'll look forward to seeing many of you on campus or at reunions as we start to slowly reopen back up. Be in touch with any questions at any time. And again, thank you everyone for joining tonight. Have a great rest of your evening.